Yesterday, the first 3 episodes of Season 4 of The Boys dropped on Amazon Prime. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Season 4 of The Boys. In this video, I'm going to try and do both a spoiler-free and a spoiler discussion of the episodes. And so if you want to talk spoilers down below in the comment section, just put up a little spoiler warning just in case. As a point of reference, I watched Seasons 1 and 2 of The Boys when they first dropped. Reviewed them, covered them on my channel, but when Season 3 dropped, it was just kind of a busy season in life. I was hoping to watch the season as it aired, but I also wanted to rewatch the first 2 seasons and do a ranking, the full coverage and everything like that, and I was just too busy. I wasn't enough in the mood to watch something as extreme as The Boys, so I just kind of got lost, and I finally caught up on Season 3 as well as Gen V over the last couple of months and got some coverage down below. I'll have cards or whatever. You can click on that to hear my thoughts on the previous seasons of The Boys, and soon I'll post a video about Gen V. But this season, I wanted to kind of track along with it, watch along with you, and talk about it. With that said, here's my spoiler-free thoughts on the premiere of The Boys Season 4. And generally speaking, I wasn't really feeling it. And it wasn't that it was awful, bad, or super off-putting. I mean, there's still plenty of funny things that happened in it. The characters are still fun to watch on the big screen. There's, of course, plenty of just carnage candy that just kind of glues my eyes to the screen, just wondering what insane thing is going to happen next. But it just felt a little bit stale. Like we've already seen all of this before. We've seen Homelander getting away with doing terrible things. We've seen shocking sexual visual gags and bits. We've seen insane ultra violence. We've seen even the social commentary. We've seen this stuff before on the show, and we've seen it done better. And it feels like they're kind of continuing to just reach further and further, trying to keep going, but we've already been there. And I don't know if it's because they're nervous about losing key pieces of what have made the show work all along the way, but Homelander with Ryan, we've seen this dynamic already. And it just feels like they need something more dramatic to shift to keep things interesting. Last season, we got that in having Butcher, Huey, gaining powers. That's a pretty dramatic shift in the dynamics of the show, as well as kind of some of these flashbacks to the 80s, Soldier Boy. There's kind of a more obvious shift in the dynamics that brought something new to the table. And I haven't felt that this season, so it just feels like we're retreading, rehashing things we've already seen, at least thus far. Maybe we're about to get something more amazing kind of moving forward, but there wasn't that strong hook for what makes this season stand out. That new idea, that new exploration, new character, whatever, that really shifts things and sucks me in. Now, obviously, there are some new characters thrown in there that are interesting. They're fun enough. Like, okay, all right, I want to see where that's going. But they weren't like something that really shook things up. And then even on the social commentary, it felt like it was trying to mirror reality a little bit too much, to the point where the parallels get lost because you have the established world of The Boys, and it's trying to like have multiple different parallels to reality to where the allegory just breaks down. The commentary breaks down because it doesn't make any sense. The pieces don't fit together, and so it just feels like they're referencing things, putting things out there, and you go, that's not a thing. That's not, what are you trying to say right now? And so just a lot of things like that where it just didn't feel as crisp, as sharp as previous seasons. As I mentioned at the beginning, like I just watched Season 3 and Gen V, and I watched both of those, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is what I remember The Boys being. And then I picked up on Season 4, and it just felt a little bit more forced. Felt like they were trying a little bit too hard, and it didn't feel as organic, and it didn't feel like it had something new to offer. At least yet. That was my experience with it. From there, let's start talking spoilers. With this, I'm just going to kind of walk through some of the characters, some of the plot points, and give the immediate thoughts that I had. Just wrote a few notes down while watching it last night. First off, one of our new characters introduced is supposed to be the smartest person in the entire world. And the whole kind of thought here is Homelander realizing his own limitations and impulsiveness and thinking, what if he brought someone in who's more clever than himself to try and come up with this master plan of how to take over the world or whatever. So he goes to her, and in and of itself, I think there's a little bit of that plot point that feels a bit out of character for Homelander. And it's called out by the character, I'm forgetting her name off the top of my head, but calls out him and his arrogance, and does he actually want to hear from someone? Because he's perpetually been shown as someone that always has to be right, doesn't take correction well. And this would be like one of the few examples of him showing growth, that he would realize his own limitations and allow someone else to kind of enter in and tell him what to do, and he would actually listen to it. I'm assuming as we go along, we're going to immediately start to see more and more friction there. But like, it was like, okay, I see where we're going with this, but it just doesn't seem like Homelander would be the person to propose this idea, go along with it, and think that it would be okay. And then, I don't know, I have to see where all of this is going, how they're trying to pay it all off. But as soon as you have a character that's supposed to be the smartest person in the world, you can run into the problem of the character can only be as smart as the writers. And they're not the smartest people in the world. I'm sure they're smarter than me, but they're not the smartest person in the world. And there's kind of that movie TV version of smartest person in the world, where because you just use smart as this word that means always able to be right or whatever, and that's not really how intelligence works. And so we're doing like psychoanalysis, strategic thinking, and just like being able to just know things. So there's a whole plot point where she's being tailed, and then of course everyone walks into her trap, and they just write it off as, you thought that you could tail me and I wouldn't know, because she's smart. Like, just smart means you always are the one that's right, always ahead of everyone else. And like, it's just that version. That's not what smart means. If you know enough smart people, they're naive, they're impulsive, they're just as flawed as everyone else. Smart doesn't take away all the faults of humanity to where you're just always right. There's plenty of incredibly smart people, or there are utter failures in life because of these other things that go into intelligence, and intelligence doesn't just mean better than everyone else. So the character thus far has been written very odd, and even in moments where she's like, where she's like correcting the other soups to like make sure that they know you're better than everyone else, and kind of the way that she's manipulating people and things like that, you go, okay, I really need to see where this is going. Even trying to understand her motivation. What has she been up to the last several years that she was just sitting in a room reading books? And then all of a sudden, as soon as she's brought on by Homelander, she immediately goes into full-blown psycho, megalomaniac, take over the world mode. Just trying to figure out what's going on with this character. Where's this headed? But immediately when they said, she's the smartest person in the world, I went, is this going to be that weird version of smartest person in the world where she just magically is right and they never have to explain this really clever thinking she's doing? Okay, yeah, it's that version of smart. Yeah, not crazy about that. Then we had social media girl that also joins the Seven, so kind of introduced as kind of this conservative online pundit that pro-America, anti-Starlight, and running at these cons. And when she's kind of recruited to join the team and kind of get kind of her inspiration behind everything of the importance of having purpose and giving people meaning, and how do people kind of get sucked into some of these online movements. And when I was doing all of that, I was actually tracking along with it, because there's like truth to that of we find purpose in a mission. And you could even, see that in some of the release the Snyder Cut stuff of it became more than just, oh yeah, I mean, we want to see the movie, kind of turned into like this greater cause that people can't even let go of, even though Zack Snyder's Justice League has been released and it's still like this movement that's holding on for years later. And I say that as someone that adores Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I think it's special that we got it, but that it kind of turned into this strange like movement. Well, it's because people need purpose, and people found purpose in the middle of like the early stages of COVID and other things in supporting releasing the Snyder Cut and things like this. It's just interesting the way that works out. And they play into it. There's like actually really good commentary, like analysis of the way that people back these online movements and why do they get so intense about something, because it gives them purpose. So it's really good. And then they keep unpacking, and eventually you get to the part where it's talking about like what's motivating her anger for Starlight, that it's just so intense. And it like at first I'm assuming it was going to be almost kind of this detachment of, it wasn't anything about Starlight. Starlight didn't matter to it. It was about, she found a way to, give people purpose. And it just happened to be like, I was thinking it was heading that direction. And instead they give it like the most petty Mean Girls defense of turning her into like a psycho that's okay with murder. That's like in the middle, like people are dying and she's like fine with it. And it goes back to, well, remember when we were in a pageant and we were 13 years old? What? Okay, that's where we're going with this. And man, I have rewatched all of The Boys over the last several months, and the way they present 13-year-old Starlight feels dramatically more Mean Girls than she'd ever seemed to me. Like, because they present her as what she says about this person, the way that she plays people like against her, what she says when she's confronted about it. Like I never, unless I'm missing some scene, like absolutely she was like playing the game, but I don't remember them presenting her as like just straight up Mean Girls, say cruel things to destroy people. Like maybe I'm missing something. It just felt like, I don't think we've seen Annie presented as as just an unbelievably cruel person in the way that you just presented that, in two different ways. Like both the rumors she spread and what her reaction in that moment felt like. I'm just missing a scene. Feels like there's way bigger of a gap between the character we've seen and what you just presented. And she's wrote it off as like, well, my mom taught me to be just cutthroat, which makes her mother even worse than she already was, of just not just that she's the stage mom, exploiting her child, but making her child unbelievably cruel. But also they were kids. They were children. And so when an adult is still like, why are you okay with people dying and causing, like tearing the country, like leveraging your platform to tear people apart? It's not because you believe in the greater good of giving people purpose, of they're not just a loser, they're a part of this movement to stop corruption in media. No, it's because someone was mean to you at a pageant when you were 13. Like it almost like undermined the thing that I thought was clever and good in it. There was an interesting observation that was useful in the ways that people on the internet can get sucked into these worlds, and why do they run some of the grifts that they run? How does that happen? And then, no, she's just mad about, like even in the show itself, it called it petty. Like we're just going very, very petty, and there wasn't really a reason given for it. So it started strong, and I thought kind of lost itself a little bit in there. A couple other ones that kind of stuck out to me. The Huey's mom stuff, I thought it initially was like, okay, yeah, we need to kind of unpack. Eventually, meet Huey's mom. I guess that's something interesting to do there with the character I mentioned not having new interesting dynamics. Huey's mom, that is an example of potentially interesting dynamic there. Whenever they started giving her the mom's explanation, that did not sit right well with me at all, where it was she had postpartum depression, and postpartum depression so she left her kid and then never really reached out, somewhat because of the dad. That does not, like, I abandoned my kid because of postpartum depression and I was suicidal. And so it just felt best to just get out of there. And yeah, then your dad was hurt, so he didn't want me to reach out. Pretty much every piece of that feels manipulative to me. It does not, like I hear every piece of that and you're like trying to make me feel bad for a person that abandoned their kid, or rationalize it, or put the blame on the dad, or you're trying to make a scenario where you cannot, it's an indefensible action to do without some explanation, without a letter being written, without some phone call. And so you're trying to make pieces fit by putting the dad in just a position, and it was bad enough she's suicidal, and that comes off just manipulative rather than earned, or like, oh, I understand why she did what she did. And they're presenting her just such a way that, like, really off-putting. So another one of those plot lines, like, I don't know where they're headed with this, but using postpartum depression, suicide, and a hurt dad as shields for abandoning a child, that's like, in particular, a show that, like, it's like Edge, like Lord's show. We'll get to that just a little bit. It lives in this realm of extreme, edgy characters, and then trying to make this seem like reasonable behavior or justifiable behavior. The way they did it, like, I don't know, did not sit well with me. But I guess I'll do that, moving on to the edgelord stuff. This is another one, maybe the show's just getting a little bit stale, where the gimmick of let's just do extreme stuff, at a certain point in time, it just feels like you're just looking for the next extreme thing to do. So episode 2, they have the human centipede bit, and it's legitimately, we're just walking down the hallway. What's that sound? Oh, human centipede guy. And there's like a little payoff of the joke. There's a little bit of payoff of the setup, but it's just, let's do something extreme. Like, it's just, well, like, how can we top the crazy thing we did before? Well, this guy's doing this to himself. It's just that. And the gimmick is, you do 3 seasons of The Boys, 1 of Gen V, and we've seen a lot of it. We've seen a lot of extreme stuff, and felt more earned or had more of a meaning, and this was just, we needed an extreme thing. It more and more is feeling like that is what so much of what they're doing is. And final one to kind of talk about on here is the social commentary. They're more and more having parallels to the real world and referencing things. And as they're trying to like pull together the plot points, the established world of Vought, and then let's parallel real life, it just felt like the pieces are fitting less and less. When you have like someone screaming against the mainstream media and the lies of the mainstream media, and then they join up with the biggest corporation in the world, you're like, wait a minute, this is really breaking down. Like, this is not, like, the pieces really don't quite fit here. And the parallels you're making, there's a breakdown here. You're either trying to force something that's not there, or you're ignoring something that is there. Whatever it is, it's not as smooth as it used to be. It's not as clear as it used to be. And maybe that's just the reality of it. When you have a show that lives so much on the extreme edge, there's only so much you can do there before you go over the edge. And perhaps that's kind of where things are at, or they're right at that realm, or maybe just the novelty's wearing off for me. But first 3 episodes just did not, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. Absolutely. There's things that were funny, enjoyable, fun sight gags that were extreme, crazy, wild. And then there's just a lot of it that kind of feels like, yeah, Homelander's a terrible dad, but his son, Orion, wants to connect with him, and Butcher's a terrible dad, but he's trying to stop him to be from the worst dad. And we kind of been doing this dynamic for 3 seasons now, and the same kind of back and forth, and kind of the same Butcher's talking to Ryan, and then Homelander shows up. We've seen it. And so it feels like we're kind of just circling, waiting to kind of fully land it, but we're just a lot of it feels like that. Just a lot of we're spinning plates. We're just kind of keep it going until we can get to the end. And there's some of these plot points that just feels like there hasn't been the proper shakeup, where Homelander is now exposed for murdering someone in public, and even that doesn't shift the dynamic for the character. He's still running the Seven corporate, like even that isn't shaking things up. And Ryan himself, through the manipulative things going on, he killed someone, and he's still with Homelander. It hasn't shaken things up. And so it feels like there needs to be something that moves forward a little bit more, that something matters to the actual dynamics in a greater sense than has been up to this point in time. So I don't know. It seemed like a lot of people, some of my friends, really enjoyed it. They got to see the whole season. Maybe it gets better. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I watched it in a foul mood or whatever, but just wasn't fully feeling it. Let me know what you guys are thinking down below in the comments section. You can check out my other boys content, I don't know, somewhere around here. I'll pin comments, things, whatever. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.